This video is going to be part of my YouTube playlist on old versus new management thinking or theory. And I'm comparing Taylor, which is kind of the old thinking that still is embedded in organizations today, not being taught in universities, is the work of W. Edwards Deming. And then the 95 method is kind of my method that furthers the thinking of Dr. Deming. So let's look at, in this episode, I want to look at this concept of one best way, which I've talked about before, but not necessarily in a context of old versus new management thinking. And the one best way, which is kind of old thinking versus the newer thinking of there's a lot of things that are unknowable and require learning. So starting with Taylor, he believed that all the information that's required to find one best way was available or known. And management and specialists and experts would uncover that one best way. And then the worker would be basically mandated to follow that best way. Now, in today's world, this plays out as an example, which I've had firsthand working with multiple software companies, is that a lot of times technology is assumed to be good, and you have the experts in technology or software, and it's funny to me because software of all things has built into it a lot of inflexibility. And because the assortment of interactions that your organization gets from customers, this assortment of interactions becomes very difficult to absorb for the people working with the software. So, in other words, it makes it very difficult for customers to get what they need out of your organization. And the funny thing from working with software companies is it was always about best practices. Do it this way because, well, invariably it's because the software company had already coded that way and they don't like a lot of one-offs, and that becomes more expensive and projects overrun and cost, and you got to have project managers to manage the change requests that are coming through, and all these things increase costs. And some projects that I've witnessed that have taken years to develop, things change. And during the course of it, well, you can't, no more requirements. We got to put a foot in the ground because, this is silly. To have software that aspires to one best way is just does not account for a number of things. And I'll get into that when we look at Deming's look. But scripts that are used in contact centers or the standard work that is out there, there's got to be this one best way of doing things. And I think that to be an effective executive, you've got to be aware of this, that this is going on. And projects and change in organizations fail when affected workers, aren't participating or making the decisions about their own work. And there's a whole series of neuroscience things associated with that when you don't have the freedom to control the work that you do. And I'm not talking about a new person in an organization. I'm talking about workers that have been there for a while. Now, that's Taylor, one best way. Deming, on the other hand, W. Edwards Deming took the attitude that, the most important data are unknown and unknowable. Now, I worked with a consulting organization in the UK. I thought that was flaky. And so I immediately knew that they were very Tayloristic in their mindset, because everything had to be defined. You had to have the right data, and it was definable. It was something that you could do and come up with a process or a program. And it just doesn't work that way. And this is where experimentation and learning is required. And matter of fact, this organization in the UK have said don't use the word experimentation, which is funny because every organization requires experimentation because that's the only way that you can really learn and get a better sense of the unknown and unknowable, even though you will never have perfect data. So the other thing about Deming is he had the mindset there was always a better way, and that's the way you have to go into it with these things, or you become a dinosaur pretty quickly. And this then gets into innovation and things of that sort because somebody out there is going to be looking for a better way to do things in today's world, and we've seen all the disruption that's gone on. Look at newspapers. I mean, just about every industry, some worse than other industries, but it's coming to every industry. So what does the 95 method bring to the table? Well, we understand that systems are different. Banks are different. Having one software package for one bank and this is going to work perfect for you because you do all the same things and have all the same types of customers. And, the reality is that customer interactions are, if we're quote Forrest Gump, are like a box of chocolates. And designing an organization with flexibility will allow you to give customers what they desire. So this requires a lot of learning in your organization, and software, as a final comment, or technology needs to enable the worker and not the worker enable the technology or software. And if especially in service, you have to have the focus. Well, even in manufacturing, you have to have the focus on the worker, because if they don't understand the work that they're doing and that they're offering up ways to experiment with their work and do additional learning, then they're really shutting their brains down. And this is a really negative thing for the organization as a whole. So keep this in mind. If you're want to be an effective executive, understand the differences of Taylor's One Best Way and Deming's Unknowable and Learning element to understand how to accomplish something. Now, this is exactly the types of education that we do with executives, is walking them through the methods that they'll need in order to experiment and learn, and so that there's a constant learning process and setting that up within the organization. But it starts with you. It starts with a veteran, new, or aspiring executive that's looking to better themselves and their organization through thinking that isn't necessarily prevalent in organizations today, which gives you an advantage.